Hey y'all, welcome back Porch Cooking and Reminiscing. I'm Roger, and as always, I'm happy to have y'all here with us today. So y'all really seem to enjoy when I do the one pot meals. So today we're going to do another one skillet meal. We're going to do a classic chicken pot pie in cast iron. So y'all stick around. I'm going to show you how it's done, and it's going to be delicious. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to melt us 3 tablespoons of butter in our cast iron skillet. And then after we get our butter melted, we're going to add our onions to that. So we've got our butter melted. So now we're going to pour in, this is between a small and a medium diced up onion. And I did dice it pretty small. So we're going to pour those in. And then we're just going to let those cook until they get kind of translucent. And we'll put just a little bit of salt. We're going to be using self-rising flour, so we're not going to need the salt for the plain flour. Now, if you do decide to use plain flour, you will need the salt. But for this one, we're just going to put just a touch of salt in there. All right, and then we want to just whisk those around and get them all in the butter. And we're going to cook those until they become kind of translucent and get tender. So our onions have been cooking for just a few minutes here, and as you can see, they're starting to get translucent, which is the way we want them. So now the next thing we're going to add in is going to be just about a quarter cup, maybe just a tad bit over a quarter cup of self-rising flour. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to use that to basically make a roux out of, because we want our sauce to be thick for our pot pie. So we're going to do that, and we're just going to move everything around and incorporate that flour in those onions and butter. And I'm going to let that cook for just a minute or so, just to kind of cook some of that flour taste out of the flour. We don't want to let it brown, but we do want to cook it just enough that it kind of melts into those onions. And that doesn't take very long at all. Like I say, we just want to let it cook for about a minute or so. And just kind of keep stirring it around, moving it around. That way you don't have anything start to brown. All right, now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add some chicken stock. And I'm going to start out with about a cup and a half. And that may be all that we'll need, but may wind up having to put a little more in, but we'll just see how it goes. So I'm going to pour our chicken stock in there. And then we're going to get us a whisk. We'll get our onions off of there first. And then we're going to get us a whisk, and we're going to whisk this up really good. Get everything incorporated, make sure we get all those lumps out, the flour lumps. We want to just make sure that nothing is lumped up, that everything is good and smooth. And then we're going to let that just kind of sit there and cook for just a few more minutes. And it'll start to thicken up there with that flour. And like I say, we may wind up having to add a little extra chicken broth to it, but we'll see how that goes. And now we're going to cut the heat down. We were on about a 4. We're going to go down to about a 2. And we're going to put our seasonings in. And we're going to do a good heaping 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic. Let's go just a touch bit more on the garlic. I like garlic in everything. And now this is something you don't have to add to yours, but I'm going to add to mine because I really like the flavor of it. But it is a blackened seasoning. All right, so we got that in there. Now we're just going to stir all that around. Incorporate our seasonings into everything. All right, smelling good. All right, and then we are going to add, I believe the next step calls for us to add our 1/4 cup of heavy cream. All right, so we got our heavy cream in there. We'll just mix that around. This stuff starts to come together pretty quick. It doesn't take long at all once you start putting the ingredients together. Well, we got a good thick base there. That's going to make a delicious sauce for our pot pie. Looking good. So our sauce has been cooking for about 4 or 5 minutes now. Now we're ready to add our vegetables. And this is just a frozen vegetable blend. It's 12 ounces. You can use 16 if that's what your bag is. That'll be fine. It doesn't really matter. Get everything out of there. So we got peas, carrots, and green beans in that. Just kind of give that a stir. Mix everything around in there. And then the next thing we're going to do is I've got about 2 cups of chicken. We're going to add that chicken in there. And this was a chicken that we used to get it when we had the restaurant. And it's a grilled chicken, but you can use rotisserie chicken, or you could use chicken that you've cooked yourself, boiled, baked, just however you want to use it. You could probably even use canned chicken. We just want to stir that all around and get everything incorporated in. I've also got the oven preheating to 400 degrees. That's where we're going to want that to be at. And now one last thing that I'm going to do that you may want to do, you may not want to do, but I'm going to add some little potatoes, little diced potatoes to mine. And you can use the canned potatoes, or you can do like I did. I took a small potato and put it in the microwave for about 2 minutes and then peeled it and then diced it up into little small pieces. So that's how I'm going to do mine, but you can do yours however you want or not do it at all. And we're just going to let that cook for a few minutes, couple of minutes on that. Go ahead and take the heat back up to about a 4 on it, and just kind of let that cook until the vegetables are not chilled any longer. So we've had our mixture cooking for a few minutes here, and now I'm just going to take my little diced potatoes and just going to kind of sprinkle them all around. and that was just a cup of them. That was a very small potato, but didn't want to overload it with potato. And now we're just going to mix everything in. We don't want to mix too much because we don't want to get those potatoes all soft just yet anyway. All right. And that is looking good. All right. And so now the only thing we got to do is smooth that out a little bit. And then we will come back and we'll put our crescent rolls on top. All right, y'all, so we got our crescent rolls spread out over top of this, and we are now ready to go into the oven, and we're at 425, and we're going to come back and check this starting at around 15 minutes or so just to see how it's looking. Y'all, this is what our chicken pot pie looks like. It smells delicious. Just came out of the oven, so we're going to let it sit and rest for a few minutes, and then we're going to come back and get us some and see how it tastes. So we've let it sit here just a little bit and kind of rest, so we're ready to cut us a piece of it and get it on a plate. And it's going to cut me out a square piece here. Get down in underneath that with a spatula. Oh, that looks beautiful. Get those extra vegetables there. All right, y'all. That's what it looks like. It's got a good layer of vegetables on it, a good crust from the crescent rolls, and again, like I say, you can use crescent rolls, you can use puff pastry, you can use canned biscuits, just whatever you want to use. All right, let's get a fork and let's give it a try. All right, y'all. So got me a fork here and got my chicken pot pie, and let's get us some, see how it tastes. Here we go. Mm, y'all, that's so good. That sauce is so creamy. All of our vegetables are super tender. Chicken's tender. Got a great flavor to it. I'm telling you, that is a top of the line cast iron chicken pot pie. This is much better than anything you're going to buy out of the frozen section at the grocery store. So, y'all make this for your family. Share this recipe and video with your friends. And as always, y'all remember, if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. And I'm going to go eat me some chicken pot pie. Y'all have a great one. Appreciate you being here today.